All right, let's do this. Today we're taking a deep dive into the art world.
Yeah.
You guys requested Kaijin, and I gotta say, this portrait we're looking at, it's really something.
Yeah, Kaijin's work has just blown up online recently.
It has.
You know, there's just something about their style that people are connecting with.
Definitely. It's like, okay, imagine this. Vibrant magenta hair
Oh, yeah.
in these like playful buns and these eyes that just, they tell a whole story, you know what I mean? But it's more than just a cool picture, right?
Exactly. There's depth to Kaijin's art. It's not just surface level.
Right.
We're going to unpack that today.
I love that. So this portrait is our jumping off point.
Yeah.
What can we learn from the details? I mean, why is this kind of art really hitting home for people right now?
Yeah.
And could this even be a video game character? I'm already getting ideas.
I love that. Let's start with the visuals. That magenta hair, it really grabs you.
It does.
What do you think Kaijin is trying to say with that? Not just the color, but like the style too.
Well, it's bold, isn't it? It's definitely making a statement. You don't see that color every day, especially not hair. So it makes me think of individuality, maybe even like a little rebellious. And the buns, they're almost playful, which is interesting with her expression.
Yeah, and it's interesting how color can evoke such strong feelings, right? Magenta in some cultures represents royalty and spirituality, so it's a powerful color, for sure. You can't ignore it. And then you have those like almost grayish green eyes. And that gaze, she's not looking right at us.
Well,
It's like she's looking past us, lost in thought or something.
it really makes you wonder, what's she thinking about? You know, what does she see that we don't? Like, is Kaijin doing that on purpose to pull us into her world, her thoughts? Just by doing that with the eyes?
I think so. It creates mystery, intrigue. It asks the viewer to like participate in the art, to finish the story with their own imagination.
I can see that. And there's this really interesting contrast between the bright, vibrant magenta of the hair and the clothes are like muted, almost an earthy green. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's really smart. It's color theory in action to balance and focus the image. The muted tones of her clothing are grounding, they're realistic, and then bam, the magenta just pops, drawing our eyes to her expression, her thoughts, her individuality.
That makes so much sense. It's almost like the clothes are meant to fade back and let the hair and her expression be the main focus. It's very deliberate. It makes you appreciate the skill that goes into making something like this.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of skill, let's talk about the line work.
Okay.
It's incredible how Kaijin balances fluidity with precision.
Yeah.
Like, look at how they do the hair. It's
Yeah.
loose, it's flowing, but then you see those really sharp, precise lines around the eyes and the lips, and it just adds that touch of realism.
Wow, yeah. It's like a dance between control and letting go. Almost like they're letting the lines tell the story.
Yeah.
What stands out to you about the line work?
I think the varying line weight is masterful.
Okay.
If you look closely, you'll see Kaijin uses thicker lines to define the forms and to create shadows, and then the thinner lines, they add the details, the texture. It's subtle, but it gives the portrait depth and dimension.
It really does. It makes it feel alive. you
Yeah.
know? Like not just a flat image, but like it could breathe, like it could move.
Yeah.
And while we're looking at all these details, what about you listening in?
Right.
What details are you picking up on? What stands out to you the most? Is it a specific color, a certain line, or the overall mood of the piece? For me, it's got to be the mood. I get this sense of like contemplation, curiosity in her expression, and maybe even a little melancholy. Like she's carrying a whole world of emotions inside her. And Kaijin manages to show all of that with just a few lines and colors.
Yeah, you're picking up on something really important there. Kaijin's work, it's not just visually appealing, it makes you feel something. They can infuse their art with these subtle emotional cues that draw us in, make us connect. That's a sign of a truly talented artist.
Yeah, it reminds us that art can speak to us emotionally without using words.
Yeah.
It invites us to connect with the subject, to empathize, maybe even like see ourselves in their gaze.
Yeah, I get that. You look at this and you feel like you're seeing into her soul a little bit. It's intimate, but also kind of universal, you know? Have you ever felt that way about a piece of art? Like
Yeah.
it understood something about you, even if you couldn't explain it.
Totally. I think that's a big reason why Kaijin's work is connecting with so many people. It's tapping into that human need for connection, for being understood. And you know, it's interesting. Kaijin's style, this blend of realism and almost graphic novel-like character design, it's part of a bigger trend we're seeing in art these days.
You mean like how they can capture so much emotion, so much detail, but with this minimalist approach.
Yeah, it's not hyper-realistic. But it's not overly simplified either.
Exactly.
It's like they found the sweet spot.
They have. We see this minimalist but emotionally rich approach everywhere. Animation, graphic novels, even video games.
Yeah.
It's like a distillation of form and feeling, a way to get complex ideas across quickly and clearly.
Makes you wonder, right? This shift towards a simpler style, maybe it's connected to how we consume art now. In the digital age, I mean. Think about it. We're bombarded with images constantly. Scrolling, clicking, swiping. Maybe our brains are adapting to process information faster, more efficiently.
That's a really interesting thought. Like, our attention spans are evolving to keep up with the digital pace.
Right.
We need art that grabs us instantly, gets the message across, without overwhelming us with details. And Kaijin's work, it does that really well.
It does.
You're drawn in by the bold colors, the composition, but then there are these subtle layers of meaning, these hidden depths, waiting for you to discover them.
It's like they're giving us the essence of a story, the core emotions. And then they let us fill in the blanks with our own imagination. And speaking of stories, remember how we were talking about this portrait as a video game character?
Oh yeah, of course. I'm already picturing her in this amazing world, ready for adventure.
Me too. Okay, so based on just what we see here, what kind of game do you think she'd fit into? What kind of character would she be?
With that thoughtful expression, that gaze looking off into the distance, I don't see her as a typical warrior or knight, you know? She seems more introspective, observant, maybe a mage, but not the kind that's just blasting fireballs from the back.
Ooh, I like where you're going with this. Maybe she's like a road mage. Someone who relies on strategy, on cunning, maybe even a bit of stealth.
Exactly. She could have this unique magic system, something subtle and unexpected. Maybe she manipulates shadows. Or she can communicate with spirits.
Oh, and that magenta hair. It could be like a visual representation of her power, something that makes her different from other mages. Maybe it even glows when she's casting spells.
Now you're getting it. And her clothing, that muted green, it suggests practicality. She'd rather blend in than stand out. It reinforces this idea of her being a rogue, someone who operates in the shadows.
I love it. So we've got this rogue mage. She's got this unique magic. She prefers to stay hidden. What about the world she lives in? What do you imagine that's like?
Well, she doesn't seem like she belongs in a typical high fantasy setting, you know, with castles and dragons. I'm thinking more urban. A city with this hidden magical underbelly.
An urban fantasy.
Perfect.
Maybe it's a city where magic is outlawed, but there are these secret societies of mages operating in the shadows.
Ooh.
And our rogue mage is caught in the middle. Maybe she's trying to expose a conspiracy or protect those who can't protect themselves.
I like that. And that gaze that's not meeting ours directly. It could be because she's always watching, always observing.
Yeah.
Looking for threats or clues. She's always a step ahead. Anticipating danger.
It adds so much to her character. And the melancholy we see in her expression, maybe it comes from some past trauma, something that drives her to fight for justice in this hidden world.
It's amazing. We're building this whole narrative, this complex backstory from just one image.
I know.
It really shows how powerful Kaijin's art is. It sparks our imaginations. It makes us want to tell stories.
Totally agree. And what's even more amazing is we're just getting started. I bet you listening have already come up with your own ideas about who this character is and what her story might be.
Yeah.
What kind of game world do you see her in? What special abilities would she have? What challenges would she face? Let us know. Kaijin's art, it's a starting point, a spark of inspiration. But it's up to us to take that spark and create something amazing.
It's amazing how one image can spark so many possibilities. It really makes you think, what was Kaijin thinking when they made this? What stories did they have in mind?
I know, right? Even if they didn't have a specific story, it makes you come up with your own.
Yeah.
Their art is like this catalyst for imagination. You know, we were talking about how Kaijin's style is part of this trend, this minimalist but emotionally rich art. Why do you think that's resonating with so many people now?
I think it's partly the world we live in today. We're constantly overloaded with information, stimulation, noise. It's overwhelming. I think people are craving simplicity, clarity, a sense of peace.
Oh, it's like this art style, it offers a refuge from the chaos.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a visual breath of fresh air. It invites us to like slow down, contemplate, connect with something deeper. And you know, even though it's minimalist, it's not afraid of complexity. It can still convey so much emotion, so much depth with just a few elements.
It's like a visual haiku,
Yeah,
right? Every line, every brushstroke, it's intentional. It has meaning.
I love that analogy. It really does capture what this style is all about. Distilling things down to their essence, finding the heart of it all, and expressing it with like precision and elegance.
Yeah, and that's something we can all learn from, don't you think?
Totally.
Not just in art, but in life. You know, in this world where there's just so much information, being able to simplify, to prioritize, to focus on what really matters, it's becoming more and more valuable.
Absolutely. And artists like Kaijin, they're showing us how to do that. They're proving that you don't need all these crazy details, these complicated stories, to create something meaningful, something impactful. Sometimes the simplest forms are the most powerful.
You know, as we've been talking about this portrait, imagining her in a video game, I've been thinking about the game mechanics. What would fit her abilities, her personality? What are your thoughts?
Well, considering how thoughtful she seems and how she prefers to blend in, I think a game that focuses on strategy and stealth would be perfect. You know, she wouldn't be charging into battle.
No, definitely not.
It would be about using her intelligence, her observation skills, that unique magic of hers, to outsmart her opponents.
Exactly. Maybe she could manipulate shadows to create distractions, or use her connection to spirits to gather information. The gameplay could be about solving puzzles, navigating these tricky environments, and making choices that really matter,
Yeah, choices that have consequences.
that affect the story, the world. I'm getting excited just thinking about it.
Me too. And it all started with this one portrait. It shows how powerful art can be, to inspire us, to spark our imaginations, to remind us of the creativity we all have inside.
So to Kaijin, we say thank you. Thank you for sharing your vision, for making art that makes us think and feel and imagine.
And to all of you listening, go check out Kaijin's work. See what stories you find hidden there.
Let their art inspire you to create, to explore, to connect with the world. Until next time, happy diving.